if you are getting close to retirement and you are looking at where's the income going to come from, and perhaps you've worked for a company for many years, you have a pension with that company, which is an amazing thing typically because pensions are going by way of the dinosaur, unfortunately. And so having a pension with Social Security is a good position to be in typically when it comes to retirement planning. However, it is not foolproof, and there are things to be considering and thinking about when it comes to planning for retirement with a pension and Social Security. So here are a few things that I would think about when it comes to retiring with a pension and Social Security income. So first thing is the timing of the income and the timing of retirement. So when we talk about the timing, the first thing is timing of when do you actually want to retire. So maybe you're late 50s, early 60s, and you are fed up with the corporate world, fed up with the rat race, and you are ready to stop. However, you're unsure as far as when to start claiming the income. And I think that's a wise question because there are irreversible consequences to starting claiming a pension and starting claiming Social Security. So the timing of when to retire becomes really pivotal when you're planning to retire, when you have a pension and Social Security as part of your overall income strategy. And so there are a few rules when it comes to Social Security to think about. And so you can start claiming Social Security generally at 62 all the way to 70. The full retirement age for Social Security is based on the year of your birth. For most folks retiring or thinking about retiring over the next few years or later, it's either 66 in a few months or 67. And so the full retirement age amount is basically your full benefit. However, if you claim earlier, then you are going to get docked a early withdrawal penalty basically of about just a little over 7% per year. So your benefit is reduced every year that you claim early by about 7%. It's not that exactly, but it's close to that. So if you want to retire earlier than full retirement age and you are using Social Security as part of your income strategy, then the timing of when to claim Social Security becomes part of the question because the benefit will be reduced if you claim before full retirement age. Now, the flip side of that is also true. If you wait to claim Social Security until after your full retirement age, all the way until 70 is the maximum time that you can claim, then you would have the ability to have increases in your benefit, which can be really beneficial to have that 7% bump in benefit every year. 7%, at least a few years ago, was really tough to get on any sort of conservative investment. Now we're getting closer to there. This is filmed in March of 2023. However, the market rates change and investments change, but Social Security should, depending on how things go, should be around at least for some more time. And so delaying Social Security allows you to have an increased benefit. But then that still begs the question of when should you retire if you are using Social Security as your benefit? Well, a lot of that depends also on the second component of the question is if you have a pension and Social Security when it comes to retirement, what are some things to think about? The pension component is also important because some pensions will be the full benefit once you've hit a certain number of years of working, and some it's a full benefit once you hit a certain age. And so you need to understand your own plan documents and what's the maximum benefit that you're going to receive from that pension. Is it based on years of work, or is it based on your certain age, or is it based on some other formula or metrics? And each plan is created independently and separately. There might be a lot of similarities to them, but for instance, the Walt Disney Company has a pension plan, and theirs is basically, it maxes out at 65. So even if you retire early, it generally, how the numbers work out, you end up with more benefit at 65 than if you were to retire at, say, 62, for example. So we want to think about what's the maximum benefit that you can receive from the pension as well. And that may be one of the determining factors when it comes to claiming your pension and Social Security for retirement income. The other factor, like I talked about, is when do you want to retire and what are your other resources to do so. So if you want to retire at 60 and your pension benefit maximum starts at 65 and your full retirement age is at 67, we need a plan to cover those gap years and income. Now, it's not to say necessarily that you want to take Social Security early, because the risk with retirement most of the time is not living a short time, it's living a long time. If you live a short time, then that kind of makes the numbers easier, unfortunately, is how it ends up working out. But we want to plan for if you have a nice long life, and because of that, it maybe would dictate delaying some of those benefits, not when you retire, but delaying so that you can receive the maximum, not so much for the income in the short term in a 5-year, 10-year period, but really looking at that 20 or 30-year mark when you might be in your 80s or even early 90s. If you're married, potentially even considering and taking the impact of those benefits on your spouse as well. What happens if you were to pass away or pass away early, especially if your spouse made less income or maybe was working in the home and not really working outside of the home. Those are factors that will impact your benefit, but also maybe your spouse's benefit as well to think about. And so if you do want to retire before your pension starts or you want to retire before Social Security starts, it may be worth considering, if you have other assets to live off of, using those assets in a tax efficient manner, in a safe way, to support yourself until you're able to claim that pension and Social Security. The other aspect when it comes to planning for that income as well is the inflation impact. Sometimes a pension will adjust for inflation and sometimes it won't. For instance, the Disney pension does not adjust for inflation. However, other companies' pensions may adjust for inflation. So you need to understand how they are taking into consideration inflation, because if it doesn't adjust for inflation, as we've seen, inflation can be a major factor in how much stuff costs over time, and we want to plan appropriately not only for the short term of retirement within the next few years, but we also want to plan for retirement for the longevity of retirement. So we want to consider inflation and its impact on your pension. Social Security will adjust with inflation. And so that is a nice thing, and the nice thing of delaying with Social Security is that then the inflation number is the same, but it's starting on a bigger amount. So that is a factor to consider as well. The con, of course, of delaying a pension, the downside of delaying a pension and delaying Social Security really is if you were to pass away early and you lose out on the benefit that you were due. You worked all these years putting money away, or the company was putting money away for you, and you're putting money away into Social Security, and you work all these years. And we have all heard these stories of somebody retiring and then 6 months later they pass away, and they're tragic stories, and it's unfortunate. And the living have this visceral reaction of, well, I want to get every penny that I'm due before my time is up. But the reality of the matter is that we don't know when our time is up. And if you're dead, you're not going to care if you got your money or not. So let's not. So that's where we want to think about planning prudently. I think the bigger risk to plan for is living longer than it is for shorter. And so that's the main downside, though, if you were to claim Social Security and your pension early, is if you don't live long enough to get the full benefit of that, which would be unfortunate. However, I think if you are no longer with us, you're not really going to care whether that happened or not. And so those are some things to think about when it comes to retiring with a pension and Social Security as some income sources. The last thing that I would say is the taxation of those and the taxation of when starting them, especially depending on the other assets that you have. If you have other assets that may be taxable, maybe you have a 401k or an IRA, for example, those assets, sometimes a pension and Social Security may be enough for you to live off of, and so that's going to set your income for retirement. but then maybe you are within a certain bracket, and so maybe you can readjust some of your other assets to be more tax efficient long term. And so you want to consider the taxation of those assets and the taxation of your income, the pension and Social Security, and being cognizant of your tax bracket, and also being cognizant of your Medicare rates, because the pricing for Medicare is based on how much income you make. It's a 2-year delay, so it's a little bit convoluted to calculate all of that, but we need to be cognizant of Medicare impact and your taxation rates as well. And so those are some things to think about if you're retiring with a pension and Social Security, and I think hopefully that gives you a good overview.